This is the Voyage Report podcast, where you get the scoop on travel. Now, the editor-in-chief of the Voyage Report, Mark Albert.
Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a popular money-saving tip for when you travel. It's kind of like Airbnb, but for free. We're talking about house sitting, staying in someone's home and looking after it while on vacation. Our guests today do this full time. Dave and Kathy Cutts are house sitting pros. They're joining us today via Skype from Playa del Carmen in Mexico. Dave, Kathy, welcome to the Voyage Report podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm so fascinated about this topic, and I don't think people know enough about it, although everything I hear means it's getting much more popular. So tell me, what is house sitting and how does it work?
Okay, well, house sitting, in its simplest form, it's an exchange of services for accommodation. So usually house sitting is some form of pet sitting. So a homeowner will be going on vacation themselves, they have pets, or they have a home that has specific needs to be cared for. So they need somebody to come and live in their home, take care of their animals, take care of their home while they're away. And for us as house sitters, there are various sites that you can register to be a house sitter on. We find those, we apply, and if we're lucky enough to be chosen, we go essentially and live in that homeowner's house and take care of whatever the needs are that they've requested.
Listeners, we're going to get into all the specifics here so that you know how to do this for yourself. First, Dave, Kathy, let's ask you the three questions we ask all of our guests here. First of all, you've traveled so much. I'm really curious, what has been your biggest discovery while traveling?
We, like you say, we have travelled a lot. We've travelled to over 50 countries around the world, and we've been doing it a long time. Obviously, not the house sitting part, but definitely we've always been into exploring the world. And the thing for us is all the experiences that it brings for us. So, for instance, when we travelled to China, we got lost. And we find that we're at our best when we're in difficult situations, and travelling definitely brings that.
Well, Kathy, I have to confess, whenever someone asks me if I'm ever worried if I'm going to get lost, I say, you know what? If you don't plan exactly where you're going, you can never get lost because it's all an adventure and it's all a discovery.
Indeed, yeah. That's the biggest part for us, is the fact we feel more comfortable when we're uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
It does.
It's the thing that brings the memories for us, the things that allow us to look back and remember the times that we were lost in paddy fields in China or somewhere in New Zealand, not having any idea where we would be sleeping that night. So it's those things rather than kind of the day-to-day on the beach or in a bar or whatever. It's those unusual experiences that really form long-lasting memories.
Now, this might be the toughest question I ask you in the entire podcast because you've been to so many places. I know it's hard to choose favorites, but what is the favorite place that you've been to?
So I think we're going to have two different answers here. So for me, I think of Thailand. Whenever I think of a place that I would return to and have returned to, I think Thailand. For us, we visited 3 or 4 times, and then I was lucky enough to be working there for 6 months. And from the mountains in the north, the jungles, the elephants, the wildlife, through to the islands and the beaches in the Gulf of Thailand, all amazing opportunities to see such differences across the country. And of course, Bangkok, such a vibrant city that you can eat street meats one evening, the next evening you can be in amazingly top-end restaurants, top-end restaurants on the top of skyscrapers. So for me, I think Thailand, it's exotic and it has everything. But I suspect Kathy has a different answer.
No, well, Thailand's definitely up there for me, but for me, it's probably Africa as a continent, where we were lucky enough to spend a month there for my 40th birthday and visited various different countries and did a lot of different safaris while we were there, and that was just an amazing experience. If anyone said to me, there's one last trip that you can do before you die, and only one, then I definitely would choose to go back to Africa.
Wow. Well, before we end our conversation, Dave, you're going to have to play tour guide for me. I'm going to be going to Thailand later this year, and I heard about the elephants, and I'm going to need a full report here so that I can plan out my trip. And what's the next place that you guys are traveling to? You're in Mexico right now. Where are the winds taking you?
We are back to California in October, so we're in Mexico for 4 months. We're back to a repeat sit in Lake Tahoe in October. And November, we have no plans as yet. So whether we apply for more or we decide to go camping, we're not too sure. December back in the UK, and then we've got a 3-month sit in January on Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. So we're pretty much fully booked now until April next year.
Listeners, get your bids in now. If you want Dave and Kathy to come house sit for you, you're going to have to book. They're already going into 2018. So let's talk about your experience house sitting. How did you get into this?
Well, that's a good one. We were actually on a round the world trip about 8 years ago, and we were in Fiji in the middle of a cyclone. And the people who were taking care of us in the house that we were staying in, they told us that they were house carers, pet sitters, and they'd been doing it for 20 years. They were an Australian couple. Probably at that time, they were probably in their late 50s. They had their own property in Australia that they rented out. And then when they weren't house sitting, they had a camper van. So they told us all about the site housecarers.com, and we kind of got back after our trip, and Dave went back to work, and we joined House Carers anyway, thinking, he was working for himself, so it didn't mean he was working 12 months of the year, but we actually never followed it through. It wasn't until March, April last year that we pulled it out the back of our head and said, our lease is running up in our house in Tahoe. What are we going to do? I know, let's try this.
A lot of people might have warns or cautions. I mean, did any of that cross your mind? Did you do research before signing up for the first time? No.
We're definitely not the cautious type, and if we have an idea, we go for it there and then. We don't overthink. I think if you overthink too much, you never do anything.
Wow.
We always have a backup plan if things don't work, so that's fine. We're financially stable, so that wasn't an issue. And it was just kind of, okay, this is what let's see how many we need to apply before anyone picks us, and how long will it take to get our first sit. And as it was very, very easy.
Kind of like matching up friends or something, right?
Yeah, in fact, it kind of is like a dating site, except, of course, you're matching up a homeowner and the house sitters. And we didn't really have any reservations. But again, that comes back to the first question about being out of our comfort zone. We're comfortable in doing that. And that comes from the various travelling we've done. But yeah, we built our profile on the housecarers.com site. And we had no clue if we have to apply for 50 house sits and find one, if we'd apply for 5 and get 5. So, we kind of threw our hat in the ring, and we were very lucky. We applied for 5 and we were offered 3 of the 5.
Yeah.
So even from the get-go, we seemed to be quite successful in terms of what we applied for and what we were offered.
Listeners, we're going to be asking Dave and Kathy a little bit later for their tips if you want to start house sitting, how you should set up your profile and how to go about it. So make sure you stay listening for all of that a little bit later on. Dave and Kathy, you had a house, right? And you had just retired. So did you sell the house? Do you still have the house? When you're not there, who's taking care of it?
Yeah, so we have a house in England, and in fact, that's rented out now. So we do get an income from a house in England. That's actually been rented out for a number of years. So when I said earlier I was lucky enough to work in Bangkok, I worked in Bangkok and I worked in New York as well. So we had already rented our UK house out and was getting some kind of income from that. We moved to Lake Tahoe. We lived in Lake Tahoe for about 18 months, and we gave up the Tahoe home. And that's which we rented at that point. So at that point, we essentially became nomadic, homeless, nomadic. So we at that point we became fully nomadic. But fortunately, we have the security blanket, if you like, of a home in the UK with some rental income coming from that.
You mentioned one of the sites, I think it was House Cares. There's also housesitmatch.com, trustedhousesitters.com, mindmyhouse.com, House Sitters America. Do you just stay on one site, or do you have profiles on multiple sites?
We originally had 3, which was House Carers, House Sitting America, and mindmyhouse.com. We actually don't do mindmyhouse.com anymore, purely for the fact that one, we're really busy with being booked up with the other sits, so we don't really need that engine, and 2, there weren't really any coming up that took our fancy, whereas the other 2 sites, the American one, obviously we still have our base in America, we still have a car in America, so if we want to do sits in America, it's a lot easier for us as far as travelling from A to B. So that's a good site to have. And the housecarers.com has been our most popular one because they cover all around the world, everywhere basically. And we've got the most sits from them as well.
So when you're looking for your next house-sitting adventure, and it really is an adventure, do you have any geographic preference, or do you just go on that site and you look at what's up for grabs and you think, boy, Fiji would be great or Mexico would be great? Do you have any preset destination in mind?
No preset whatsoever.
I love that.
It literally is. I am on the sites constantly, every day. So wow. I literally want to be the first person to see that sit, and I apply for it straight away if I want it. So it has to be something, it has to be somewhere that we want to go. We're not just going to take or apply for a house sit because we've got a space of 3-4 weeks or whatever, and that's not why we do it. It's got to be somewhere we really want to go. And it also again has a lot to do with the pets that people are wanting looked after. We're huge animal fans, and this is a great way for us to be able to travel and also get the love that you get from a pet without having actually got your own pet. So the pet thing's a big thing as well.
And I think I read on one of the sites that something like 70 or 80% of the houses listed on there do have some pets involved. So you pretty much have to be a pet lover, right?
I'd say, to be honest, it's probably like 95% have pets involved.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mainly people who have pets. It's mainly people who are going back to their own country as well. So they're expats who are living wherever. So the Costa Rica one, for instance, which was our first ever sit, she was going back to Holland for 3 months because she was Dutch but living in Costa Rica. So needed someone there for that 3 months to look after not only her properties, but she had 2 cats and 3 dogs. So,
So what animals besides cats and dogs have you cared for? Alligators?
No.
Well, so you laughed, but inadvertently in Costa Rica we had snakes and a whole host of scorpions, but they weren't pets; they were uninvited
uninvited guests.
Uninvited guests into the home. So we did have to deal with that. The only other animals we've cared for are chickens. And both in Fiji and in Portland in Oregon, actually, both of those 6 we had chickens, and I have to say they're my new favourite animal. They're entertaining, they're fun, they're social. You feed them the scraps and they give you eggs. What more could you want? So I've got to say, if I'm looking at pet sits and chickens are involved, that always takes my fancy.
Well, listeners, if you want to check out all the animals that they come across, they're pretty good about posting photos. Dave is a great photographer. They're on Facebook and Instagram at Two Brits on Tour, and that's Britz, Brits, Two Brits on Tour. So how many homes have you stayed in altogether now? How many homes have you house-sitted for?
Oh wow. Well, we've probably done at least 12 sits, but some of those have been repeat. So once, obviously you do a sit for somebody, if they're big travellers themselves, and luckily we've got quite a few homeowners that are big travellers, if they like you and you like them and you get on with the pets and the pets get on with you, then you can do repeat sits with them. As far as countries are concerned, this is only the third foreign trip that we've done. So we had 3 months in Costa Rica, 2 months in Fiji, and we've got 4 months here in Mexico. All the others have been around America, so mainly California, Oregon, and Idaho.
And you're not above bragging. I noticed on your social media. I think it was there in Mexico. You had one home you were house sitting for, and you were just sort of slyly pointing out the private courtyard swimming pool, I think.
that was actually it wasn't a sit, so that was actually us treating ourselves. So normally when we do a foreign sit, what we like to do is spend at least 4 or 5 days in that country before actually going to the sit. So that was in Merida, in a city in Mexico, where we went there for 6 nights before actually starting the sit here in Playa del Carmen.
Oh my goodness, fantastic. Well, you also mentioned Idaho, and there's this funny video, I think it's on your Facebook page, and Dave, you are showing people the home in Idaho when you arrived, and I can assume that it's a new experience for you to have to dig out the entrance to the home from all the snow when you arrived.
Yes, in fact, that one was North Lake Tahoe, that particular sit. Idaho, we did have snow, but we were later in the season. But this one was North Lake Tahoe. In fact, it's the same home we're going back to for a repeat sit in October. But we arrived to the home. It's actually the homeowners, they have 2 homes, and they hadn't been to the cabin for some time. So they hadn't had any of the snow dug out from the footpath and the stairs down to the house. And for those that don't know, Tahoe and indeed most of the West Coast have had record-breaking snowfalls this year. So I think that particular day I had about 4 to 5 feet of snow to dig down into, and it was probably about 30 to 40 feet winding its way to the front door of the home. So it certainly keeps you fit when you have to move that weight of snow.
That was not on the brochure, I imagine.
No, but it's part of the deal with house sitting is you're not turning up to a hotel or an Airbnb. It's not got the maid service and everything laid on for you. You are walking into somebody's lifestyle and their home, and you have to deal with things in the same way that a homeowner would have to deal with it. So, yeah, it's not in the brochure, but then the brochure is expect the unexpected.
Exactly. Housesitmatch.com says it does do criminal background and reference checks, and it actually says that more than half of their house sitters, 56%, are over the age of 60. Is that your experience and what you find when you meet other house sitters?
Yes, and I think the reason for that is that to house sit on a more permanent basis, clearly a level of financial stability is required. Otherwise, and there are plenty of younger folks who house sit as well, but they're aiming to generate a remote income. So remote workers, authors, bloggers, those kind of roles and jobs, certainly many people do that. But once you get to a retirement situation, you may sell your home, you may rent your home out as we're doing, and that gives you a level of financial security to be able to travel, and of course time to be able to travel. So certainly when on the forums that we're involved with and when we talk to people, that is the case.
And we're probably one of the youngest actually that are doing it full time because of our ages. Like Dave said, most people are over 60 because they're more financially stable and might have a pension coming in as well.
Do you ever miss not putting your head on your own pillow?
We don't have an own pillow, so.
So no, because we've been very nomadic, even before moving to Tahoe and then doing the house sitting. I was working all over the world, and Kathy was coming with me. So Kathy was a bank manager and retired some years ago, so she was able to travel with me. So for quite a few years now, we have been nomadic, even as workers rather than sitters. So no, when we do quite a number of shorter sits, like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, living out of a suitcase can get a little tiresome. We do have a storage unit in near Lake Tahoe. So when we're coming and going from the USA-based sits, we'll go back and forth, and we may load the car and unload the car with winter clothes or summer clothes or bikes and whatnot. So that can get a little tiresome. And I have to say, coming out to Mexico for a long-term 4-month sit after essentially 6 months of, I think the maximum sit we did prior to Mexico over the last 6 months was 3 weeks. So coming out to Mexico and being able to unpack, knowing that we'll be here for 4 months, it kind of does feel like home in that scenario for us. So a longer sit, 2, 3, 4 months, starts to feel like something quite solid for us.
And we do actually, I definitely get itchy feet. So I get, once I'm in one place for too long, even, we lived in Tahoe for 18 months, and I don't know if you know Tahoe at all, but it's absolutely amazingly beautiful. But, after a month of just being in Tahoe, I go a bit stir crazy. I kind of want to get out of wherever I am and see something new and different.
And what is the reaction of your family and friends? I'm really curious about this. I mean, when you tell them that you're doing this full time, did any of them have any concerns or reservations, or were they all just like, oh, I'd love to join you?
I think for family, they've always known, as Kathy said, we've been travelling for 28 years since our honeymoon in Egypt. We cruised the Nile for our honeymoon 28 years ago. And we've always been quite adventurous in our travel. So our family was kind of, oh yeah, okay, we get it, it's you too. Friends, certainly a much more mixed reaction from friends, but overwhelmingly positive. Many of our friends now, as they follow our fun and games on the Facebook and the Instagram, they say they live vicariously through our lifestyle, and that's really nice to hear that they're interested, and actually 2 or 3 have said to us that when they get to the point in their career or their life, they are absolutely going to look into this and give it a go, because I don't know if inspire is the right word, but we've shown them that it's entirely possible. It's not a pipe dream. It's not something that gets talked about, can't happen. It's a very real thing. And and they're all very keen, or a number of them are very keen to follow in our footsteps, if you like.
So financially, do you save money? I mean, you're not paying a monthly mortgage payment. You still have food and obviously your airfare when you go to a different country or a different continent. So what's the financial picture like?
So the key thing for us, so we have some income from our house in the UK, and we have a variety of other investments. So that's very positive for us. We then manage our outgoing expenses very carefully, and I say we, and I mean Kathy. She
credit where credit is due, right?
Well, credit where credit is due. Kathy, being an ex-bank manager, she has me on a very tight rein when I need to be. So Kathy manages our budget. She knows exactly how much we are spending day by day. So that's very tightly managed. Now, the other thing as well is we can look at a longer term sit. So for an international sit, for instance, we take a choice to do a longer international sit, because then the cost of the airfare is essentially spread over a longer period. Right. So we're not paying for flights every week or every month. So typically the longer sits, we manage those as foreign sits, and then the shorter term sits we do around the US, where we can drive to the sit. So we can manage our costs that way. for us, overall, over the past 12 months of permanent sitting, we are net break even on our savings. So what the investments and the rent has given us, we've spent about that. So it's been absolutely amazing when you look back at that, to think that we've lived in ski resorts over winter. We've been to Fiji and Costa Rica. We're now in Mexico. And essentially, it's net zero on our overall cost.
We're basically from a year living in Tahoe, when we rented a place, obviously paid for the bills, so on and so forth. We are probably in the region of $40,000 to $50,000 a year better off now that we're not doing that.
Wow.
So a lot.
Wow. And just to be clear, when you are house sitting, you don't pay the electric bill for the house that you're sitting at, or water or anything like that.
Well,
or do
actually, well, this one we actually are doing, which is a first for us. 99% of house sitters refuse to pay any kind of bills. Now, we agreed on this sit. One, because it's 4 months and that's a long time. Two, you need aircon on in Mexico.
Air conditioning,
yeah. And if the homeowner doesn't know us, so they don't know whether we are the kind of people that will leave the aircon on 24/7. She's on a really expensive electric tariff here as well. So it would end up costing her hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month if we were the type of people to do that. So we basically agreed that we would pay the electric, just the electric, nothing else, just the electric. And then we could have the aircon on as much or as little as we wanted to within our budget. So, this sit we are actually paying the electric, which is going to work out probably around $100 a month.
It's not typical to pay. It's not typical. Yeah, it's not typical to pay utilities. The general rule and arrangement with any house sitting is a quid pro quo. You essentially provide services for the animals and the security and the upkeep of the house, and the homeowner pays for their bills that they would typically have anyway were they staying in the home. But we're not as black and white as some of the sitters in terms of I will or I won't pay for utilities. For me, it's a value exchange between the two parties, and we'll take a look at the pros and cons and make a decision based on that.
Listeners, we're going to be asking Dave and Kathy in just a moment for their tips if you would like to start trying house sitting. But first, guys, what are some unexpected experiences that this has all led you to?
Good question. There hasn't really been any. I mean, you can Skype call owners and kind of get a feel for where they live, but you could show up and it not actually be how you expect it to be. So, for instance, the Costa Rica one, we knew that she had no windows in the house. We knew that bugs would. Well, let's
qualify that. She has windows. She has no glass in the windows.
Sorry, yes, yeah, she has windows.
Oh my!
It's just bars and not glass, so things can get in and out. Hence the fact we had snakes in the house and scorpions.
Wow.
And so you can kind of think, we'll be okay, until you wake up in the morning, walk into the lounge and see a viper in the middle of the floor.
Oh my goodness.
Then you kind of think, maybe this wasn't such a great idea after all.
Oh boy.
We, again, you're walking into somebody's lifestyle, and if you're choosing a house in the jungle in Fiji, you have to expect the unexpected. Fiji, we did have an interesting and maybe entertaining episode that the homeowner, before they left, we spent a week with the homeowners before they left for Australia, and they explained that being quite remote, they had seen on their security cameras people scouting the home out, looking to see if there was any opportunity to steal from them, and indeed they had one of their generators stolen. So
a masked man with a machete.
Oh my goodness.
So and that they didn't talk about that with us prior to choosing us for the house sit. So that was
unexpected
piece of information. Now, about 3 a.m. one night,
about 2 nights after they left.
There was some banging and crashing from outside, and I jumped up, grabbed my machete, which I kept in the house for reasons. When I look back, I don't understand why I thought that was a good idea to have my own machete. But I grabbed the machete, I ran outside, and sorry, listeners, I sleep naked, so I'm a middle-aged guy running around the Fiji jungle with my own machete, looking to see what the commotion was. As it turns out, it was a rather amorous cat that had come visiting the cat that we were looking after. So in the end, all was well. And again, why I think me as a swashbuckling, naked, machete-wielding guy would have been a good idea at the time, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was just another cat. So yeah, I mean, you can get unexpected situations, and you just have to deal with them. That's part and parcel of arriving in somebody's home and just getting on with it. I will add to that, the postscript to that story is, I hate to think what the homeowners saw on their security cameras.
Oh boy!
When they got back and reviewed that.
We will not be posting that video, as this is a family-friendly show. Okay, let's get into tips now for frequent and even infrequent travelers who may be considering trying house sitting for the first time, perhaps in their own country or overseas. What would you recommend for people who are considering this? What should they start to do first?
So, and you make a good point. This is not just for permanent travellers. This is for somebody who may think about this for 2 weeks or 1 week or even weekends every now and again. And I would say, think about if you have the opportunity to look after pets for friends, for family, to start to get some experience. And that experience, one, it's experience for you, but more importantly, it will enable you to create a profile with hopefully references from the people that you have looked after. So the first key point when you join a house caring site, a house sitting site, is that you will be building a profile. And on that profile, you will be listing your experiences, your skills, etc. So references are the most important thing to have. And of course, when we started out, when anybody starts out, you will have very few references for pet sitting, but there is a good chance you'll be able to get a professional reference, for instance, as you would for if you're changing careers or looking for a job.
Landlord reference.
Yeah, you should be able to get a landlord reference if you've rented a property. So think laterally. When you're building your profile, think laterally about the kind of references that may not be directly pet sitters references, but they do speak to your ability to manage a home, look after a pet, etc.
Trustworthiness.
All of those things, professionalism, communication, all of those kind of things. So don't walk into the pet sitting profile build situation and think, I don't have anything. Everybody has transferable skills. And I think that's, for us, we thought carefully about what those transferable skills were. And as I say, when the first 5 house sits we applied for, we were offered 3 of them. So that's the key, I think, first, is that the profile and how you build that profile with the experiences that you have and the recommendations that you can get from people. And again, if you have friends, and we did this in Tahoe a lot, a whole bunch of our friends have dogs and animals that needed looking after while they maybe were at work. We did that because we love animals, but that turned into a great starter point for us to have references from those folks for our pet sitting. So that's my biggest first tip. My second thing is communication. Communication is absolutely key. For you, you're going maybe investing in flights, investing in travel. It may be more local to where you live, but you are investing in that experience. And also, you may be in a situation, as we are, that you don't have an alternative in terms of somewhere to live. So communication, making sure that you understand what the homeowner requires, needs, what their looking
expectation level is as well from both sides is hugely important.
So, and for you as well, to make sure that you ask the questions. You shouldn't be shy and retiring in asking the questions of the homeowner. For us, if we're going to Fiji for 3 months, or Mexico or Switzerland or whatever, I need to know that the things I need are there. So many people who do this do remote work. So knowing that you have a solid Wi-Fi internet connection is clearly going to be very important for those that require that. For us, it is as well, not because of work, but because of communication, Skype, Facebook, and actually TV, IPTV, downloading TV for those kind of things as well. So really get yourself a list of questions together for the homeowner. So when you go through that process of applying for a house sit, we always require a Skype face-to-face video call with a homeowner. We want them to see us, we want them to look us in the eye and get a feel for who we are. We also want to do the same for them, and we have an extensive list of questions which are designed not just to allow us to get to know them, but for them to challenge us and ask us questions. Some of our homeowners, and indeed actually where we are now in Mexico, this is the first time she's used house sitters, and one of her top reasons for choosing us was that we had a range of questions which prompted her to talk to us about things she had no intention of talking to us about. So it gave her great confidence.
Like what, Dave?
About security cameras, for instance. If you're going somewhere to a home, many homes may have security cameras, internal and external. Now, we prefer, obviously, not to have internal security cameras, or if there are internal security cameras, that we can control them, because you have a right to privacy as a sitter in a home. But at the same time, a homeowner is going to want to be comfortable with their security. So having a real open conversation about security and privacy, those kind of things. You mentioned earlier about paying and utilities. Having an open conversation about what the expectations are about any kind of fees. We have that conversation. So we've read on the various house sitting forums that we're on that some people have arrived at a house sit and the homeowners asked them for a deposit. Now, that's okay if it's been discussed ahead of time, but if you turn up and you can't and walk through the door without handing over a deposit that you knew nothing about, that would be a showstopper for some people.
And would either of you stay at a place that asked you for a security deposit, a refundable security deposit?
No one's ever asked us for that. We do see sits online who request that, though. You do come across people who are very upfront when they're advertising that they require, say, $500 deposit. For me, I've no idea why anybody would expect a sitter to do that. If you don't trust that person, then don't get them to be your pet sitter, because that's what it all boils down to, trust. We have to trust that the homeowner is being truthful in what they're selling to us, as far as going back to the Fiji one. We had a conversation about where the house was, and they said, and they were, I think they weren't being untruthful, but they basically said, it's a 10-minute walk down to the main road where you can get a taxi into town or wherever. Well, as it was, they were kind enough to give us a car when we got there. Now, if that hadn't have happened, we would have been in a really, really difficult position, because although it might have been a 20-minute walk down to the main road, it would have taken over an hour to get back, because it was a very long 1 mile uphill, steep hill, jungle track to get back to the house. So it would have been impossible. It would have been a nightmare of a sit to have been stuck somewhere for 2 months and not being able to get out.
Wow.
As it was, they had a second car, as Kathy said. They gave us the use of the car, so that made things infinitely more pleasurable. And actually, that community had its own swimming pool on the beach in Fiji, and and the community was pretty much empty because it was a vacation community, and many of the plots hadn't even been, construction hadn't started. So as it turned out, we had the house and the cat to look after, we had a car, and we had a pool house, a beach club on to use as well. So that was kind of perfect in the end.
It makes up for the 90-degree climb, right, to get back to the house.
Correct.
Yes.
And what happens about emergency communications? I would imagine that they leave instructions, whether the house has a pet or not. Maybe the water heater breaks, or maybe the pet has a medical emergency. What kind of communication is had between the house sitter and the homeowner when it comes to emergencies?
We make sure that we get all these details before we even go on the sit. So that's actually one of our questions that we ask them when we do the Skype call, is we want numbers for the vets. We want to be shown where the vets actually is as well, so we know how to get there. Any neighbours or friends, telephone numbers, addresses, who would be available if we needed them. Plumbers, electric, gas, everything, you name it. We ask for all the contact numbers you would have as a homeowner yourself, who you regularly used. You want them to leave you all those numbers, and if possible, introduce you to some people as well.
And then when you go to leave the home, do you vacuum? Do you clean up? How do you leave the home?
Oh, absolutely. That's one big thing for us. We make sure that we leave the home absolutely spotless, cleaner than how we got the home, definitely.
That's a golden rule for us.
It's a golden rule that we make sure that we leave things in the fridge, so milk, bread, any basic things, especially if they've had a long flight back, anything like that. The last house sit that we did, which was in Idaho, I bought a really lovely plant for them, baked them some cookies.
Wow.
You kind of left them a card, a welcome home card, things to show them that you appreciated them choosing you, and also, that they will consider you when they next need somebody.
Kathy, if you're going to bake cookies, you can come house sit for me anytime. Let me just tell you that right now. It's one of my weaknesses. And of course, at the end of the house sitting, I assume that you rate each other.
Yes.
Well, you don't rate the homeowner actually, but they do. They can rate. I
think one or two of the sitting sites may allow the homeowner to be rated, but some of the sites have a formal rating system. The sites that we are on actually is written references, so we always ask for written references, and all of our sits have given us great references, and they're listed on our Facebook page. They're on our various house carers sites. And having those great references, they go a long way for future applications as well, of course.
Listeners, you can follow along with Dave and Kathy on their adventures. They've got great photography. Dave has definitely a photography bug and talent. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram at 2 Brits on Tour. The number 2 and then BRITZ on tour. Dave and Kathy Cutts, house sitting pros, joining us today from Mexico. Thank you so much for walking us through all the ins and outs of house sitting. I think a lot of people are going to want to try it.
Thank you. It's been great.
It's been our pleasure, and do it, people.
Yes, don't think about it too much. Just sign up.
Listeners, what do you think of that? What do you think of house sitting? Are you going to try it? Maybe you already have. Let us know by rating this podcast, giving us a review, and sharing it on social media. We have guests every week talking about travel news and trends, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We'd sure appreciate your review. It helps bring more awareness to our journalism and original content. And if you have an idea for your future guest on our podcast, please reach out at voyagereport.com and let us know. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Mark Albert. Bon voyage.
You've been listening to the Voyage Report podcast. Get the scoop on travel at voyagereport.com.